Hello, everyone. My name is Julie McVeigh, and this is Unordinary Made Ordinary, where we talk about extraordinary experiences of everyday people. After today's interview, if you would like to continue the conversation of all things metaphysical, paranormal, and supernatural, feel free to join our private UMO group by clicking on the link in the video description. And today our guest is Loreli Drache. Hi, Loreli.
Hi, thank you for having me, Julie. I'm so excited to be here.
Thanks for being here. I am very excited about our conversation. I know a little bit, because we've talked in our Zoom groups several times. So I'm really happy that you're doing this with me. So to start us off, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, Loreli?
All good.
My sister's name is Lori.
Oh, well, my legal name is Lori, so we're all good.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But my mother called me Loreli, and after an experience in my 20s, we just decided that Loreli is staying.
Oh, okay. See, I didn't know that. All right, cool.
Yeah. So, yep. She gave all of us kids a longer name, but not legally.
Oh.
I ain't teaching you to spell that.
Huh. Maybe
after my sisters and their long names, she's like, I'm not teaching any of you to spell this. Anyway, but yeah, that's the childhood I have. I grew up with 2 sisters, 2 brothers, all older than me. I came 5 years later. And so I was kind of on my own. And that's a lot of these things transpired. But yes, I grew up in the Midwest on 200 acres, where supposedly there's a big paranormal vortex. So you can imagine my childhood, okay? So it was interesting.
Perfect.
Yeah, for this. It rounds it all up. And so a lot of things click when you put all those things together. I think a lot of the paranormal and spiritual is really connected. Anyway, and so I grew up there, then went to tech school for a medical assistant, got married, had 3 beautiful children, and 4 near-death experiences. It's been a wild ride.
Oh, so your childhood, let's go back there a little bit. Did you grow up in a religious family or spiritual family at all?
Well, it's very weird this way. My grandfather wanted to be a priest. In fact, our genealogy, our name means on that side of the family, preacher man or church man. It's Kirkman, but Kirkman in America. They changed it to get over on the Ellis Island boat. You know how that goes. Anyway, so he wanted to become a priest. And so my family was brought up pretty devout Catholic, as far as like my mother. And my dad was Lutheran. So there was always this baseline of Christianity. But by the time I came along at 5, they got tired of hauling kids to church. Literally, that said, you guys can't sit still, I'm done. So it was kind of like that. So I didn't have any directness, other than like maybe if I got taken to a wedding or a funeral or something like that. I wasn't really raised in it. I went 1 year to Catholic church, and my mom had a falling out with the church, and I never looked back. In fact, after my first near-death experience, we've discussed at 7 years old, I said, nature's my church, and if women can't be priests, I wanted to be a priest when I came back. She's like, women can't be priests in our religion, and then it ain't my religion. So I've always said I was spiritual, or nature is my church, since I was a wee one.
Wow. Okay, well, since you bring it up, would you mind sharing what happened when you were 7?
Okay, well, as I explained, we lived on almost a 200-acre farm. It was like 191 acres in rural Burlington, Wisconsin. And so it was a quarry, and they struck live springs. So, and some of them were stocked with fish, various things. There was like 4 or 5 ponds. And there was this one really large one that we made into like a swimming area. It was like 30 foot deep. My family built a pier, and then it was connected over to the fishing and swimming area on the other side. So it was one big, long, very large pond. And my aunt, my uncle, and my brother wanted to go down and just check out fishing and how the fish were spawning and stuff. So I'm like, oh, take me with, and mom's like, keep your sister busy while I'm cooking supper, that kind of thing, And so they took me along, and I was just like dawdling as it is. And anyway, so my aunt and I, because I wanted to go see the deeper area, she took me down to the 30-foot deep with the pier while my uncle and my brother checked out how the fish were spawning. And so when I got down there, I decided I wanted to see the water. I'm 7, So I make my way down the bank and out to the end of the pier. And it was like, I want to say mid to late afternoon. So the sun was like really hitting the water. So I got a little lulled, you know, and then my aunt's like, I'm going to go check on your uncle. She was always very connected, and she got nervous. So she asked if I'd be okay if she could leave.
You could swim.
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
She asked if I can leave me. I'm like, will I be good? Will I not move? I'm like, I'm fine, you know. I'm fine, you know. So she's headed towards them down the path, and I go to the other side to get out of the sun because I thought that's what was lulling me in, and I still felt the same weird pull. And it's the weirdest thing because to this day I cannot remember from standing on that pier and then seeing my body sink.
Huh.
I literally, and it was weird. I went foot first. How would that happen? I don't know. So literally, all of a sudden, I was in the water, and the first thing I remember of like, it's almost like I came to, like I was in a trance. And the only thing I remember is all of a sudden seeing my air bubbles go past my face.
Oh. And
I was like, oh my God, if I take a breath in, I'm going to die. And the minute I said die, I was out of my body like a snap. Like I was just freaking and then snapping. And I was seeing my body continue to sink. And at the same time, I seen my aunt, she was halfway down the path because I'm rising above, and she realized that she probably heard the splash, maybe. I don't know, but I don't know in between that time.
Yeah.
So she screamed for my uncle and is running back to try to get me. And my uncle and my brother are still down there. But at this point, I could hear all their thoughts. So, you know, my brother's going, can I swim to her faster or run? And in spirit, I'm like laughing because I'm like, there's no way he don't run that fast. He don't swim that fast either. You know, I mean, he was very strong and athletic, but no, it's not going to happen, you know? And then my uncle was feeling that guilt, like, oh, they're going to blame us. Something happened to her. We're supposed to be watching her. And my aunt's going, he couldn't swim, and she's closest. And she's like, how am I going to save her? What am I going to do? They're going to, you know, all these thoughts are just flying. And so she's trying to make her way to the end of the pier and hang on so she doesn't fall herself and trying to reach me, all those things. But it's, as you probably hear from quite a few people, you know, spirit time is not linear. So at the same time, I'm hearing and seeing all this. And then I rise higher and I see my mom back at home, and and she's cooking dinner, and she's thinking like, oh, you know, I wonder when they're going to be back. I wonder if they caught anything, or if they actually fished or were dinking around, you know. She's just those type of thoughts. I think she's chopping carrots or something because she was making chili, I believe. Anyway, so here I am seeing all this and going, you know, and I realized right away, because people ask me this, you know, I realized that it's dead, because the minute I said die, I was on my body, and I knew that wasn't normal. You know, I'm like, I'm seeing all this, something ain't right. But the next thing I knew, I was like up in this space, which was like just endless. But to me, like, and I think it's just how I always think I don't know, like how your memory, what you're allowed to bring back. Because I know this for, you know, you sense more, there was more to it, but you only have these certain like pictorial graphics in your head of things that happen.
Yeah.
And it was like this rolling, beautiful clouds. I mean, it literally looked like kind of clouds, like you were in the clouds. But anyway, and it was just all this rolling mist. And I remember looking up kind of like this big archway, but in front of it was like the brightest light you would ever see. It was like this bright white, you know, like the LED lights, but way brighter. And you swear it would burn your eyes. And then it, you know, it's almost like looking at the center of the sun, and then it moved to like a bright neon yellow to a darker amber to an orange, but like massive. And I know I was looking up at it like it was up here, and I think there might have been like steps. I know there was like a guide or someone with me. I could sense that energy, but it's not like I saw a being. I didn't see a body in this particular thing, even that I had a body. So, and just, I remember this unbelievable piece, like, wow, I'm finally out of there. And I was just so overwhelmed with this love and peace. And I know people say that, but it's like, it's like parental love times like 10,000. And this acceptance that like how a mother loves a child, no matter what it does, what it thinks, whatever, it's just acceptance. Like, this is who you are, this is what you meant. And it was just really whatever, but I didn't want to leave it. And the problem was, he said, it was a male voice, telepathic, this being in this light. I mean, I could tell there was one, but I couldn't was just so bright you couldn't tell. And he was like, you have to go back, you have more to do. I'm like, no. And I'm pretty sure I probably had some sort of shown what was to come, because I remember saying, you're not making me go back to all that. I knew in my head, I like telepathically, like, you're gonna suffer, you're gonna have these traumas, but it's gonna get you where you want to go, kind of thing. But I'm like, you can't make me. I was literally crying. Like, if I could have cried in a spirit form. Your
spirit was crying.
I'm not getting back in that body. Yeah, I'm not getting back in that body. You're not making me.
Did you feel 7, or did you feel like an older soul?
A little bit of both, because like as I became more conscious to the body, the more they told me I had to go back, then I had that like it was like a duality. Like I was because even my mom said I was an old soul from the time I was little. Like I always knew things, argued with her, and had too much wisdom for my age. One of those, like, you can't tell me. So me as a 7-year-old wasn't always exactly typical. And so it was this kind of back and forth, and the more they said I had to get my body, the more I thought of like as a thing. But even in spirit, I mean, we have personality, we keep our personality. So and I've always been stubborn. Nobody tells me what to do. So but yeah, so I was arguing, and then when they said to go back in my body, I was half in, half out. As my uncle helped my aunt pull me, I could see my body floating, like my hair coming up and like the tips of my fingers, and that's what she was trying to grab and pull me in.
Yeah.
And then they brought me up to the shore. I don't remember any damage, nothing in my lungs, even though I know I gasped in. There was no water, nothing. But I didn't talk, and I don't think I talked till the next day. I was like, I was in and out of my body, and it took me forever to integrate. Like I fought being in my body for, I think, a very long time. I was very like disconnected. I'd walk around like a ghost. It was just very weird, very weird time. And anyway, so I finally agreed. Like I knew there was no more arguing. I'm like, fine, I'll get in the tank body.
So you're still kind of in and out. That's really interesting.
And that happened in my last experience too. I was in and out. I had to kind of save myself. But anyway, yeah. So, I mean, people don't get that consciousness comes in it now. I mean, there's some people, I'm not even sure if they got consciousness, to be honest, but
no, I've heard of the in and out, especially upon death or traumatic experiences.
Well, we do that in birth too. I mean, my daughter.
And birth, yes.
Birth memories. She's like, I was in and out, and that place was ugly. She was telling me yesterday.
The womb?
Yeah, she remembers being in the womb. So
because it was tight and confining and restricting.
And fleshy, and she said it was just gross.
Wow. And we're assuming that they're all comfy and nice in there, but they're like, get me out. Maybe that's what all the kicking.
And literally it makes sense now when she explained that to me, because each of my children I had visions of before they were born, like telling me like, do this, do that, don't listen to the doctor, to get them here safe.
Oh.
And this one, she didn't wait. I knew she wasn't going to wait for the doctor. And I'm like, I can't push. And I kept saying to her, she's here. She's coming. Get the doctor. Oh no, she can't be. Also, they look at me. She's like, don't push, don't move. I'm like, I told you. Because like, she did not wait. And then explained she wanted out. She didn't wait for nobody. She wanted out. So that's kind of funny. So it makes sense now. Like, get me out of this messy thing. And she's still really gross about touching things and germs. And so it's kind of weird how that whole personality pulls forward. We all do that. Is all I'm trying to point out.
That's very interesting. Yeah. Okay. So did you tell your mom and dad then that you had been?
Yeah. Well, it's almost like I relived it all night. It was weird, like all these flashes and images all night long. And I told my mom in the morning, I'm pretty sure. And I remember my most conscious memory of it is sitting in the chair and telling my brother, and he was kind of freaked. He's just looked at me kind of strange. He's like, how do you know? Because I said, why were you thinking that? Why did you, about saving?
Yeah, their thoughts.
Yeah. And then my family had a lot of, like I said, paranormal and ghosts and all these things, but we're kind of like these haphazard, I don't know, what do you call it? Like, we have all these experiences, but we're still like, really? Did that really happen? We're still like that childhood wonder, So, and I was very lucky about that. I guess my dad and my brother and my sister were all gifted too, but kind of denied it, damped it down, didn't want that. And my dad would tell my mom about experiences. So finally she told me about some of him. She's like, it's because I had all these gifts and psychic visions and a lot of the Claire abilities, I could tell when people were going to have babies or when souls were preparing to leave and body. And
from before the NDE or after?
After, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Oh, after.
I don't remember much before, to be honest. I
Okay.
mean,
Well, it's pretty young.
yeah. I mean, I just remember that I was a very
Wow.
strong
So
personality and opinionated and
did it
stubborn
scare you to
before that.
start knowing these things, or did you?
Yeah, I mean, because to me, anybody preparing to die at that time, and I asked Spirit, I don't want to see this anymore because they look like wax dummies. They look like an uninhabited body. Like their face looked like
I wonder
the damp,
why.
glassy, weird. Well, their soul energy is detaching, and
Okay.
so I don't know if that means the body starts to degrade. I don't know, but it just looked.
So you could still do that?
Sometimes I've looked at photos, and a recent friend of mine got very sick, and I'm like, I've been noticing that forever. Is that keep coming back because that's how he kind of looked. So it comes and goes, but it's not something that I like. Once I started having babies, I predicted a lot of my friends, even 6 years into the future. I'm like, you're having one more. It's gonna be a girl. It's gonna be like.
Interesting. Wow.
But not so much anymore. It's just my gifts are really weird like that. Like when they're needed, they're there. And I don't feel like one's any more stronger than the other. It seems like they come and go in their strength, but I trust spirit flow, like, okay, this is what I need right now. Since my last one, like my medical intuitive and a lot of the clairs like really like kick full force, so that's been really trippy. But
so when was your last one? How long ago?
a year and a half ago.
Wait, so how many of you had?
Four.
Should we talk about the one after the 7 years old?
That one wasn't like a conscious experience. We've been trying to have to see if I could get pregnant for years, and I had gotten pregnant, and I had a visitation from my deceased grandmother. Well, I don't like that word, but because we're more alive than ever. But she came to me and she said, "This baby's not yours to keep. There'll be more, but this one can't stay with you. Don't be afraid." And we were sitting in the literal clinic where I normally go to see the doctor, and she showed me this whole vision of a calendar and what date I would lose the baby and not to be scared.
Man.
Yeah, and so that happened, and I quit breathing, and I was bleeding out. And I had the same after sensations, but I don't remember a lot. But in my later ones, I got the understanding that like I just went home for healing so I could have these children. And the doctor kind of verified it. He's like, that was your body working things out. He's like, this baby its systems didn't interconnect. There's something, he goes, this was your body straightening itself out. So I understood what my grandma meant. It was very,
Interesting. So you think you went on to the other side and got some healing.
Right. And I mean, I saw it later in, remembrances and different things, that I had gone home for healing to have the children.
Do you have any knowings or do you have any opinions about the baby? Was that a soul that just said, this is what I'm going to do, and then went off to do something else, another incarnation?
I kind of think so. My daughters do see her and visit with her in the astral.
Oh.
They explain her to look kind of like you, actually. But yeah, the long dark hair, pretty face.
She's grown up, I guess.
Yeah. Now. I mean, they see her like the age she would be now, which I guess a lot of people report in their NDEs, but seeing loved ones age like that, and so they see her. So I think she just volunteered for that mission. From what my understanding was, to feel what that's like to be in a form, and just volunteer, to help me in that process, and her siblings and things like that. So
okay, so this, just curious, this your first daughter, she hasn't reincarnated part or partial, because I've heard that you can do part or partial reincarnation.
I'm not sure, because she doesn't do it professionally, but I have a very gifted psychic medium friend that I've never seen. Nobody like her. Like, she can look at a photo and tell you everything about somebody. It's wild. She's spot on. Anyway, and she told me that she felt like she did or partially did with one of my children, but I'm not sure. Maybe that's why my one daughter sees her. It could be. I think she was the second one born, because my son was born next.
Okay.
And then my two daughters. So I'm not sure on that one.
Okay, so this is kind of unique. Third, Andy, you want to tell?
Yeah, my third one.
Do you want to die? What is going on here? You've been wanting out since you're 7.
Remember how I said how stubborn I am? It's because I've had a mission and I just wasn't doing it. I want to be human for a little while longer. Don't make me do all this stuff.
Oh.
Yeah, it's kind of, a lot of times NDEs are when you veer off your path or you're not doing what you said you wanted to do in this lifetime. And I'm a very stubborn person, and I had a lot of martyr syndrome, I call it. So like I was putting everything before myself and what I was supposed to be here doing kind of thing. And I collected a lot of trauma. A lot of it I feel, and from what my understanding is more I had to have that trauma to get me to where I am now, but I kept having to go home for healing because it would have been too much trauma, like fracture your soul. You know what I mean? Because, you know, that hellfire everybody talks about is really like the cleansing fire, you know, where you drop all this negative things and return to that pure vibration, at least from my experience. So that's pretty much why I had them. My third NDE, I had, they're not sure exactly, but I lost blood flow to my brain. And I was talking to my husband, my daughter was sitting over here, and all of a sudden I was backing up weird. And then I like fell back against the door jam, and he said I appeared to seizure and then just slumped over, and I wasn't breathing or anything, you know, that he could tell from there. And it was really weird because it was almost simultaneously. At that time, I was instantly what I call it Heaven City, but it's like it's the park area, you know, where the souls, like the spirit guides and all that kind of hang out, you know, like that vibration.
It sounds like the Monroe, Robert Monroe, and a couple other people have been to the park where they
Do they talk about that?
Yes, they do.
That might be it. Okay, because it was a big marble slab, and in my husband's experience, he remembers this bench too. And I was sitting on this bench with the being that looked like my mother, but I'm like, you're not her energy, you're not her, you know. And they're like, well, I think it was one of my guides because they wanted me to feel comfortable. They looked like my mother.
But yet you knew, but how comfortable could that have been when you knew it wasn't her?
And then they're
like, what's going on?
Because, you know, and that's what freaked me out, because I'm like, because I got there so fast, there wasn't this huge transition, maybe because I've read maybe because I knew my way home. So I was just like here and then there, you know? And I just, this was the first experience, that I had seen my body. And she was rubbing my leg and patting it, and she's like, very motherly. And she was just like, you know, you've done enough now. You can stay if you want to, you know, I'll give you time to think about it, but you can stay. You've done enough, you know. And my thing and in my remembrance is more like you put in that positive balance, you know, you left with enough, you've done enough.
Okay.
What you set out, you can stay. And I instantly was like, no, I got to get to my daughter. No, my daughter needs me. And I think it was partly because I had the remembrance of another life where I was her dad and I died at the same age. And on her, I mean, she was the same age. And I had gotten shot by some robbers. It was like 1800 England, and I was a cobbler, and I was headed home from work, and some guys, two guys robbed me of my purse. I mean, there's a lot of details, but anyway, the interesting part is that one was grabbing the other to hurry, and it was one of those little musket handheld guns, you know, the little ones that were still musket, and he pulled, so the trigger went off, and it shot me right under the ribs here. But when I was born, I had severe pain there, like almost passing out all the time, even at stores. They took me to tons of specialists, never could find anything, and it went away after I remembered this experience. Isn't that wild? So it was a past life trauma, obviously. I don't like calling them past because I know they're simultaneous, but I use the verbiage. But anyway, so I was, and because I made such a loving choice, because this time I wasn't selfish, I didn't stay. Because I made that, and I think they were expecting that. It's kind of like you go through these tests.
So so I'm sorry to interrupt. Okay. I was just curious. So if you had decided, no, I'll stay because the guide that was disguised as your mother or coming in as your, oops, I hit something here, as your mom, would she have said, no, actually you have to go back, or could you have stayed, or what do you think?
I think I could have stayed. It was just one of those things that like, it was a loving choice. So I think, you know, like I told you, it's not simultaneously. So if all these thoughts are going on at once, you made that loving choice already. You know what I'm saying? So that's why you had that allowance, if that makes sense. Because I had it all at once. Everything's just, everything is literally at once. I guess that's why a lot of people freak out when they have these near deaths or die, because like everything appears chaos at first because there's so many potentialities. And
that's gotta be wild.
How our mind regulates linear time. And when that's not there at first, you're like, you know what I mean? It's like, what the hell's going on? you're so overwhelmed. Yeah. So a lot of them will just jump right back into a body or a place or whatever.
So if I know you came back, but she said you've done it, you've accomplished what you set out to accomplish. Do you think that means that you don't, after this life, you're not going to have to reincarnate if you don't want to?
I'm not sure. I mean, I have a friend who reads the Akashic Records. I didn't ask her. I mean, she did say I have mastered, so maybe, I don't know. So I feel like I'm not, and that's why I'm like giving so much knowledge, especially to my children. Mostly I do it for my children so they have something to look back, because I'm told they're going to be way more than what I'm capable of because of where I'm at and how and what's available now energetically. So
yeah,
and they're already blowing past me in some ways. We validate each other a lot. So anyway, I knew that's part of why I needed to speak out and we've given you how many chances, when you're going to start talking, what's out there, help wake them up,
okay. Yeah, I'm interested. I'd like to hear about the last NDE, but I'm interested to also know, when did you start speaking out? How long have you been doing it?
Not long. I think my first, I always do there's a near-death experience group that I was writing in a lot, and that's where I got some of the attention of some of the interviews and associations and things. And Ned runs it on Facebook, and it's a very good supportive group where everyone speaks their truth, and he doesn't allow anybody to so it's a really safe space. And so anyway, so I started that about a year, or let's see, like maybe 2 years ago. And then my first actual interview is because I wrote this manifesto of what I tell younger me: you don't have to die to learn to live, for my children. And my daughter said, somebody needs that in the near-death experience group. You share that. And it went kind of mini viral. I mean, it had like 1,000 something and 300 shares. And that's when Jeff Reynolds approached me from Jeff Mara. And that was the first one. Oh, actually, no. That's the first published one. I did one other with a medium, and she never posted it. I'm not sure.
How old is your daughter? The one that said, "Oh, you got to put that in the NDE group."
She's 19.
Oh, she's 19 now. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
And I have a 21-year-old son, a 19-year-old daughter, and a 17-year-old daughter.
Okay. Whoa. All right. So this is good. This is good. We're helping get this. I'm helping you with what you want to do.
No,
your
I
mission.
very much appreciate it. I was so looking forward to it. So I love your energy, and you just glow. You got this light, and I'm like, I want to be there. I want to know this person. When I forget how we found each other, because I think
it was in the group. I think it was the NDE group.
Okay, it might have been. And then you invited me to yours, and the rest is history. We all plan these little
Here
meetups.
we are.
Exactly, right? We all move each other a little farther.
You are light. You are so beautiful in our chat that we have anyway. But yeah, everybody loves you.
I love your chat. In fact, my husband's like, I wish there was more of those, because that's the only one you go to I really love. My husband is one of these accidental ones, like he's had all these experiences, even in near death, where he spoke with God and all this stuff. And he dismisses these all very science. He studied a lot of religions, rejected them, so when he says, wow, that was good, or I really relate to that, it gives me a, okay, well.
Then it's a good one. Yeah.
It's a good one.
Nice. Okay. Fourth NDE. We're squeezing them all in here.
Okay. Well, and that one I just recently started speaking about, because it's a little harder to explain, and it took me a lot to integrate. It was more like a shared death also. So, and that's how I validated it really happened. And it's a goofy thing. Ned's group, somebody posted a meme about lame ways we died, and people started talking about, oh, like next time I go, I'm going to do this, right? Mm-hmm. So I wrote this silly joke of not like grandpa. Like grandpa, not like the rest of the passengers in his car. Okay. Remember, he fell asleep and okay. So I said I wanted to, so not even within a week, I literally, because I sometimes have autonomic issues, and I stopped breathing in my sleep.
Okay.
And my first conscious memory is being there in that same kind of misty area. It was more white, not misty, with some of my soul groups. Some of them are living, and I've made connections with them. So they were like the ones that were living, I could see, like my husband, my daughter, my good friend, who I know in a past life was a shaman also. And this woman that I met when I moved to Missouri 3 years ago. And like once we connected, there was just like a ton of experience that started happening for both of us. Anyway, so mostly it was this gentleman who was a shaman and this other friend talking to me. And she was like, he was telling me, shaman friend, that I had, at my level of light, I should know better. And that words have power, and I shouldn't have written that. And I remember the same, sort of me arguing. I'm like, human me is a ditz. What do you expect? We forget when we get there. I remember saying that. Exactly. I'm like, we forget when we're there. And all of a sudden, the lady that I met once I moved here says, if you want that body, you have to get back in it now, like now. And I'm like, okay. Like there was like this huge rush, like, I don't know why, but I had to get right back in it now. And I remember, and this is the funniest part about saying, how do I start this thing? And all the references were that it was a vehicle. Like it's a vehicle for us to experience physical. So I'm like, how do I start this thing? And they're like, you need to swallow. And I'm like,
okay.
So I was half in and half out of the body, reaching, and I took a sip. But it's weird because like I didn't feel any of that, but I saw it happening. And as soon as I took a sip, it restarted my body. And the funny part is I have a good friend. She had a similar experience. She said she was told to start her body by swallowing. So that must be something. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Anyway, she told me, after we shared stories. And anyway, so as soon as I took this sip, I took this huge, like, those like huge gasp,
Yeah.
And then it was like a horse kicked me in the chest as my heart like kicked back in. It was like, bam. I mean, it was painful.
Wow. Okay.
I can laugh about it now, but it was very scary because I could still feel it because I was trying to get my body going and I was trying to get in it. And then it was like, you need to do a systems check. That's literally what I heard in my mind. So I'm like trying to get my nerves and I was trying to feel, I'm like, I can't feel my toes. Okay, where are my toes? And as I did that, I was checking each thing, the nerves came online. And I know I'm speaking of this like a ship or something, but it is. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is going on? But it was like when your arm is asleep times like a 10,000 when you're trying to wake up your arm or your leg. But I mean, that was more excruciating than my heart starting. It was painful. It was over in a second, but it was, I don't know of any pain, even childbirth, that I can relate that to because it was
really
all
wow.
Yeah, it was bad. But like I had all these memories anyway, like that came from me in bits and pieces afterwards. Like I could see it all happening. I know even that I did this test, right? And I knew that when I like got in my body, I'm like, what was that weird test? And my shaman friend contacted me the next day and he's like, you made me drink from your body. All this weird stuff happened. He's like, what happened to you last night? And then that same lady was like, I saw you in a vision dead laying in your bed. What happened to you?
Okay.
Yeah. So it was validated. Like they shared it.
Yes.
They were with me.
Gotcha.
We must have been doing soul work when something, like I know from my experiences now, and I'm more aware of it, that there's all this soul work we do. And my daughter's had experiences where something got hurt in the astral, and she's had to come back. So like, I get that now. So we were probably doing some soul work when my body went into distress, all because I did that. And then I told them what I did. And then they're like, I literally felt called to the principal's office. I got like nagged out for a while. Because when you're a healed light channel, you manifest super fast. Like I'm down to sometimes minute. I'm lately this past 4 days, like a minute. I'm not kidding, like a minute to 10 to an hour, depending on what it is. Like I'll say something and it'll just happen. And some of these are not, I'm not sure if I'm just reading the energy, because there is sometimes you can tell the difference if you're reading the energy or if you're creating like the incoming energy of like, because you can match the vibration. I'll get to this, I'm sorry. But so and some of them, I mean, they're so distinct that there's no denying it. Like my husband will be, okay, like that's too specific and that just happened. You just said that. Like one time I said, my cat had kittens and I'm like, I really want an orange tiger, but I didn't say fluffy. So I got 2 orange tigers. None of the rest of the litter lived, 2 orange tigers. But I'm like, I really wanted a fluffy one like Garfield. I've always wanted a Garfield. Not even within a week, a cat looking just like Garfield, literally stood up on its hind feet, knocked on my door with one paw. I kid you not. My son was freaking out. He's like, Mom, there's a cat literally.
That's cool. Okay. What can you into my life? Let's see.
Right? So it's really creepy. I mean, it is, and, you know, because it's like, okay, you know, you get to a point where like, I can't deny this. This is too specific,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
for people. And, you know, there are no coincidences. Everything is synchronicity. It's on your path. It's just, from my understanding, from my experiences, there's this void, what I call the only thing that exists is a void of creation. There's all these potentialities. When you match the vibration of what you want to experience, it'll come to you. You know, I know people talk about law of attraction. I never studied that. But it's more you matching that vibration. It's not like you're pulling it, you know what I'm saying, into you. It's more like you're meeting that vibration. It's the same way we connect with our cross loved ones. We have to try to meet them halfway or meet that vibration. You know, it's a vibrational match. So if you want positive things, you can't have all these negative thoughts. You know what I'm saying? You can't keep saying, I'm going to have a crappy day and expect to, you know, have a beautiful day with sunshine and rainbows.
I agree. Yeah, that makes sense.
Self-talk and mind talk is so important.
Super. Mm-hmm.
And that was mostly like what my whole fourth experience was about, was the power of words, thought, intentions. Wow. And that's what I gave the webinar recently for IANs about, because, you know, we don't realize literally, because words have, I was told during that experience that words are light code. They're specific and authentic to you. That's why you should only speak from your authentic experiences. And that's how empaths can read who is not being truthful. Like I've always, from as long as I remember, I can remember, I have a huge, what BS meter people call it. Like, I know, but I'll let you get away with it. I'm like, yeah. And then when they come back around with the truth, or the truth comes out, I'm like, yeah, truth always comes to light. You know, it's like no surprise to me, you know? And I think a lot of things that I was like, had deja vu, after my first death experience, most of my life was deja vu, really got kind of crazy like that. But I think a lot of it was to warn me of things that were happening, so I didn't attach, so I didn't get that soul trauma. Because part of that issue with how people always say, well, why is everybody struggling? Why is the world chaos? Why is this? Because we were meant to be the observer, but we're always attaching. Like you can pick what you want to attach to. Like, oh, this is a beautiful day. We're at the beach. I'm going to attach to this because that feels good. I want to experience that. But we're also doing with all the crappy stuff. When we're just supposed to watch it play out, pick the little points.
We can detach. We can be the observer, but we have to make conscious choices to be the observer and not attach, and choose to attach to the love and the beauty and the joy, right?
Very much so. I even seen this one time, because also, you know, people have energetic agreements. So sometimes you need to play something out. You might not be your best person, so don't be hard on yourself. Okay. I think it's a positive balance, right? We're going to do some negative, but that's because other people have things to grow from. Like your nemesis here is your divine best friend. They're the ones who are willing to risk soul trauma to let you have these experiences and grow. And from what I was shown. Okay, this is all what I'm showing. I mean, we create our own NDE, our own realities. So this is my reality for you. Okay.
So you feel we each create, those who have had NDEs created their NDE customized for their own experiences and growth and journey.
I think so, along with their soul team. I mean, it wasn't like a one-man effort, I don't think, but it was things that we decided to put in there to get us back on track or whatever. And sometimes I don't think they were, I'm not sure if they're all planned. You know what I'm saying? They were just kind of like check-ins, like, hey, you're messing up here. You know, and some of them I'm not sure. But I feel, what I was shown, I honestly feel like everything's a mind construct. I mean, literally the thought processes create everything. It's just that conscious energy is available to create. I had something we didn't talk about, which was in about 2019. I had what I call like Christ consciousness, connection to oneness, whatever. It was an experience. I was starting to get almost like channels, like I knew these things and I didn't know how I knew them. And then next thing, I had all this vision going in front of my face of when the world was created. It was this big magma lava. I assume it's probably like the center of the earth, how they describe how it's supposed to look. And I was told my energy has been here since the beginning of time, trying to move, you know, this planet along. And I've had other people confirm that since then, because at the time I was like, yeah, right, you know. But anyway, so for that, and that well, consciousness was here from the beginning of time. When you connect to oneness, you are consciousness, you know. So and I realized that, like, you know, this is supposed to be a beautiful paradise and we're supposed to be able to experience all these beautiful things, you know, but we became forgetful and we, you know, willful and all of these things, and not realizing, you know, how those thoughts play out, you know. And then, each soul was traumatized, and upon traumatized, and it took all these incarnations, so to speak, to cleanse all that. Because if you think about it, energetically, you pick those up, right? Because you didn't realize from coming from this total light density to this is a deep density here. You know, it's just varying degrees of light. Like even darkness is still light, because you wouldn't, you know, it's just, so that density is very hard for, like, basically we're like this star, you know, and we're trying to condense, like I would say it's like the genie into a lamp.
Yeah.
You know? And so that alone created a trauma we weren't aware we would have.
Of course.
Like a PTSD.
Yes.
And because we felt so confined, because I remember that.
Yep.
That's why I was told a lot of autoimmune diseases, because I told you I did not want to get back in this body. So, you know, we didn't have that symbiotic with my body. I was punishing my body. You know, it was this whole process. But anyway, back to that was, so we started collecting that trauma the minute we came through, you know, and with trauma, then you start reflecting whatever's within is without. So you start creating chaos because you have this traumatic memory, you know. So then you think, every time I do this, that's gonna happen, you know, cause and effect, you know, like Pavlov's dog, is it, you know, like I'm gonna get buzzed every time I do this or something, you know. So yeah, and so anyway, it wasn't supposed to be like that. And I remember just like crying. I mean, I was like big ugly cry, you know, I'm so sorry, I didn't know, I forgot when I was here, you know, this whole big crying, that like I felt this whole responsibility of how the world kind of, it was a gift. Like I was being told, you know, this was the biggest gift I ever wanted to give you, and look what you're doing with it. You know,
is it your understanding that the beginning of this universe and this planet, perhaps it was meant to be, like, it sounded like you're saying this was meant to be paradise. I'm not sure if you're talking about the planet or the universe, but it was meant to be paradise. But even the fact of us shrinking our light down into this small restrictive womb causes trauma. So it was inevitable that we'd have some suffering here.
Yeah,
as well.
That's kind of the understanding I was given. I mean, it was to experience that, because source is like this unbelievable, unconditional vibration of light and love in its consciousness. It had thoughts, and thoughts create, right? So it wanted to experience the opposite, you know, and to truly feel a physical existence. So, you know, it fractalized, because I was showing all these like fractals on the grid, you know, it fractalized into all these different thoughts. Like, okay, well, if this happens. So I was showing life is like a choose your own adventure book. Like I told you, like you can choose it.
Yeah.
And yeah, so, you know, so think about that, if every thought has to play out, can you imagine how much there is to the universe if every thought has to play out somewhere, sometime? Not necessarily in this timeline, but they all play out. Like things you thought in this life, you might experience in your alternate life, you know, and all of these things. And I've seen all this. I've honestly seen it for my own self, or experienced it, because I try to only talk from what I've experienced, you know, and I've experienced and seen these things. Like I even seen my mom, like after she passed, she went on to live her best life as far as what she wanted to experience. She didn't
in
stay
another
with my
timeline
dad.
or
yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like because
some
people say there's like a higher astral of Earth, but I don't know if that's the truth. But and she's even like, you're not supposed to be here, what are you doing here, you know, because like I was visiting her. I don't know if it was OBE astrally or interdimensionally, I can't, you know, whatever, but I was there and seeing her live out this life. And she had left my dad. She lived, she moved to the city because she had a genius IQ. So she was working for some company, and she was making big changes in the world, and she was very happy and very validated. And that was something I think she always wanted for herself. So I was happy for her, but I was like, why did you have to leave us to do that? You know, I was very upset.
But in this life, she's still with your dad.
No,
right?
Yes, but she passed away when she was 61.
Okay, in another life she did something. That's so wild to think about, you know?
Yeah, and it was it was more real than here. Like I knew I was seeing her, all the details, her whole apartment.
Because you travel out of body, maybe we should share with the listeners. So you do know, you do astral travel, and you go out of body. Among other things, you have a lot of stuff going.
Yeah, and so
I'm still so curious. Like, what intrigued me about what you said are a few things. The void is this creative space, and then that's where everything is created for each person, for each being.
Yeah, each fractal has its own personality and keeps that unless it decides to go back to source, From what I've understood, I don't know this personally, but it resonated, like, because we have that free will, like we can stay and be oneness with the light, or we can keep experiencing or doing spiritual work.
And when you say keeps, if we don't want to be one with the light, we can go and not just Earth, but I'm assuming any kinds of.
There's other creations. My daughters have gone out into the galaxies or created planets. I mean, you can do. There's so it's consciousness creating. We're creator beings from my experiences. It's just the density of Earth. It comes a lot slower. So a lot of things we see play out are still things like when we were worried about the Cold War. Now you see stuff, all these kind of things, you know what I mean? Like they play out eventually if you put too much energy. Wherever your thoughts and intentions put that much kind of energy, emotional energy into, you're invested. That's your currency here, is your energy and emotions. So, and that's kind of like what powers everything, and so if that's why worry, you do create what you worry of. You're like, oh, and then you're so validated.
Yes,
like, see,
sure.
I said that was going to happen.
I mean, I see that here. Do you think that happens on other planets and non-physical realms as well? Do you think this is a universal law of sorts?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it just depends upon how fast and what you want to create. So yeah, I mean, I know my daughters travel to various other timelines and planets and various things
through astral travel, would you say?
Yeah, and some they see various things in OBE or in just real time. It's so from some of that, it validated some of the things. Like my daughter gets frustrated because I will say to her, she'll be like, I had this weird experience and I went and saw this and this, and I'm like, oh, I said, yeah, that's so weird. And I'm like, I asked spirit for clarification on this, and if this happens, and if these people, what they were talking about is real, and this and that. So now it's to the point where she knows. She's like, Mom, what did you ask the universe to show you?
Cool. Oh man, that's really neat.
So, but like, it's weird because my mother contacts us and talks to us, and sometimes through my daughter, and some other spirits come through my daughter because they say they can't quite reach me. I'm not sure why that is. So they'll talk to her and validate some of the things I've asked too. But it's just kind of funny. But my mother and them, even the other spirits, like treat us and act like we're both sisters. But my daughter's like, well, they showed me because, Mom, I was inside of you when you were inside of her. So, they just see it energetically as we're all children of them.
Do you feel like you learn more through spirits on the other side, or through your astral experiences? Like, what would your daughter say as well to that? Like more valid information? Do you feel like you trust, like I trust my experiences when I'm learning with those kinds of downloads, or from a guide?
Well, I think it's a combination, because I mean, that's why I remember ever since I was young I had like very strong discernment, and I was told in my experience, discernment is key. To trust that feeling, those vibrations, right? Like what's one thing, what's not. And so, there's some that you're like, but my mother specifically told me that like, you are always protected. You are always safe and loved unconditionally. Do not worry. Just keep taking this path. Keep speaking your truth. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Nothing is ever going to harm you. And I know this now. I mean, I've seen it, that like, because this reality we see as reality, and this table, this lamp, is all energy agreements, right down to the cells in our body are agreeing, their beings agreeing to be.
All free will choices of all these.
Things start to break and fail because they're like, I'm sick of being this. Let's go, From that energy wise, they start, if you see it in an energy grid sort of way, like Tron, isn't Tron something like that? I don't know. But so anyway, and so that type of thing. So from my perspective, I think it's a little bit of everything. Like my mom's very protective of what I get, I think, like she's, and so I trust what I get because it's usually instant, and it's usually as far as like what I channel and stuff, and it's always something that resonates, or like remembrance that, oh yeah, I did know that, you know what I mean, like from my experience and things. And as far as my astral experience and OBEs, my astrals, a lot of them I can tell you when I know to pay attention, when not. They literally give me signs. It's usually like I see where I grew up. You know, if it's a message or it's something I'm supposed to pay attention, I will see that, and then it'll switch to a scene to pay attention to. That's like how some of the visions I had of like things to come would be like, hey, pay attention to this. This is your trigger. This is what you need to remember. It triggers your like visual recording.
Yep.
Right. So some of the other ones, it's just like, oh, I'm playing. This is fun. But some of it's like, listen, this is this. That's how I know the difference.
Oh my gosh, we're running out of time. I still have
Yeah,
so many questions.
It's okay.
Oh, fun stuff. Man, this is my favorite thing.
I know, me too.
Okay, Loreli, what current projects, if any, are you working on, and how can the listeners connect with you? Because I know they'll want to.
Well, I do have a website. It's lorelidrache.com. And you can find me on Facebook, same name. And I have a spirit site with Mystic Moon as a page also. So any of those in a group called Spirit Insight. And I run a sharing circle on Wednesdays for any type of experience, because all of these I figure I was told all of them are pieces to the grand puzzle. When we start speaking our truth, we connect everything. So it's very important to combine all those things. And so I have those at 7 p.m. Central Time. And I'm working on completing my website, but you can still contact me through it. And I think that is it for right now as far as what I'm doing. I'm just doing my healing practice, and I do some like shamanic type stuff and medical intuitive healing sessions. And so that's pretty much where I focus, because that's the one thing I wanted to say today is, you know, the more pure and healed the light channel is, because we're this divine antenna where all this light flows through, the more healed it is, the more you're able to manifest, the faster you're able to manifest, because you're able to channel that energy. But like when I do healings and stuff, I'll see these blockages. They almost look like a dark atom, or like, you know, Pigpen from Charlie Brown, you know, that I'll see it wherever it is, you know, like kind of blocking it or whatever. And like I said, I've heard like literally our organs have personalities, and they do speak, and they'll tell you things about, you know, what's going on in these bodies and why they're not being listened to. And why I want more carrots. And my daughter's body's always saying, I want more vegetables. But I'm just saying, and I've had other clients with, you know, fun things, but my family I can share. But anyway, so it's very important for that healed light channel. And so that's why I made some of that, and speaking about certain things along those lines, how to heal, you know, kind of where I wanted to focus, because I think that's what's needed so much right now in order to bring that light back.
Yeah. Thank you, Loreli. Before we sign off, or before I sign off, I do like to leave my guest with any last words on your heart that you just feel like, oh, I wanted to share one last thing, or just any words of encouragement.
Mostly, you know, from what I was told, and the other bigger message is to respect sovereignty. Whatever another soul is doing in their path, it's not your business. You know, they each have a path you have to trust. Their soul knows where it's going. And the second thing was to know your vibration. There's a lot of energy feeds coming on right now, and through people. I mean, that's how people like are, you know, like people that they say are bipolar, because they're constantly switching their emotions, because they have all this extrasensory input that you have to, that's why I talk about healing your light channel, because otherwise there's these energy vibrations that are constantly coming through us that we can attach to, or even energies that are being manipulated to get you to do things. So it's very important right now to know your light channel, do that healing. And that means go within and sit with yourself. Everybody should take at least 2 hours a day that they're literally just sitting with themselves. I know it's hard to look at your traumas and your things, but look at them, take accountability and responsibility, and heal. And healing changed the world, because whatever's within you reflects without in the world.
Wow, that's awesome, Loreli. Thank you so much. And I'm going to put your links up in the, of course, in the video description. I don't know if I mentioned that, but I'm going to do that.
Okay.
Thank you so much. This has been fantastic. You are amazing. I love your spirit. And thank you to everyone watching. This has been Julie McVeigh with Unordinary Made Ordinary. And if you enjoyed this interview, please give it a thumbs up. And if you like the type of content we're sharing on the channel, please subscribe and hit the bell icon so you are alerted to future videos. And I hope you're all having a wonderful day or evening wherever you are on the planet or off the planet. We'll see you all next time. Bye.